Alright, in this video, I want to go over these two short trades that I took yesterday, and the way that I'm going to be going over these is a little different from what I usually do. I actually kept track of pretty much how I entered, my thought process, and how I was managing these trades on this little Discord server that I made. This is like just a private Discord server that I use like kind of for myself to keep track of my trade ideas, and I decided to keep track of the shorts that I took yesterday because I thought there were some good examples of some market cipher strategies used in conjunction with some of the other strategies I use. So before we get into the trades, let's set the scene, talk about what I was looking at. And, basically the larger term context, we don't really need to zoom out that far. We know that Bitcoin has been pumping like crazy. It's been stalling out at resistance just for it to blast through resistance later. And now we are stalling at another resistance. We hit a key level, and now we have formed a range. And I did not mean to move the fixed range. I meant to outline the range itself. We have formed a range as we are hitting into resistance. This is not surprising at all. This is what Bitcoin has been doing this entire leg up. And these are the kind of conditions that I like to trade when we are in these type of markets, when Bitcoin is, absolutely pumping, not getting large retracements, basically just stalling out. In my opinion, these ranges are where the best opportunity is because sure, you can try and, open longs on the way up. Hopefully, you got a higher low and you can hold it. But I think in terms of, being able to take high probability trades and, be responsible with your trades, lock them in as soon as possible, take your profits when you have them. And, if you think that price may continue in the direction of your trade, maybe hold some of it for if you do get that range breakout. So we found ourselves in a range up here. And now I think it's time to start going over what I was looking at the time of, these shorts. So going over to Discord, this is the first image I posted, and I followed that up with entered short, targeting value area low, and then low of range. 15-minute MCB, market cipher B, that's what that stands for. Possibly printing trigger wave with lower high and money flow. So I noticed that overall the 15-minute was taking a turn to the downside. You can see momentum curling over. You can see money flow putting in what looks like a potential lower high. But it was not clear on the 15-minute yet. Money flow was still increasing locally, but we were getting this trigger wave. So the next image I posted, this is also the 15-minute, and I was just pointing out the VWAP. We had a decent inward curvature on this trigger wave, which is what made me interested in it to begin with. And then if we scroll down, I just pointed out the decent inward VWAP curvature, and I guess money flow starting to curl over a little bit. Not a whole lot. This isn't anything clear cut. I'm just stating that it is starting to take a turn to the downside. It could very easily just be a higher low before it continues higher later, but that was what I was looking at the time on just a 15-minute. And as I went down to some of the lower time frames, starting off on the 5-minute time frame, I noted 5-minute momentum was coming down, possible lower high in money flow as well, but hard to tell from the 5-minute alone. So I'm just trying to write down my thoughts of what I'm seeing on every time frame, and once I kind of get all my thoughts out there, I can try and put together one clear idea. But I noted that momentum was coming down. Money flow, similar to the 15-minute, it was increasing locally, but it looked like it could definitely put in a lower high. Overall, money flow has been putting in lower highs, but like I said, not super clear on the 5-minute. So then we go down to the 3-minute time frame, and here I noted 3-minute is showing the money flow coming out, backing up the idea that the 5-minute and the 15-minute money flow are topping out, and momentum putting in a lower low. So if we click on this image, I can actually open this in the browser so I can zoom in a bit. So on the 3-minute, we were seeing the money flows start to zoom out, and usually when I do this, you can zoom in a bit more, but I guess this is all we get. So money flow was starting to curl over. We were seeing the lower highs formation on a lower time frame. The 3-minute was putting in a lower high, and it looked like it was about to cross into the red. Momentum had come down a lot and was now putting in a lower low in the red, as you can see by that momentum wave, put in a lower low to this wave. So the 3-minute was starting to look pretty good, and the 3-minute was lending strength to my ideas on the 5-minute and the 15-minute. So I liked what I saw there. The 3-minute was backing up my ideas. Now we go down to the 1-minute, and the 1 minute money flow was at the time putting in a lower low in the red, and momentum showing nice overall curve to the downside. So if we click on this, the money flow, as you can see right here, is putting in a local lower low in the red, and you can see the overall curvature to the downside with momentum printing this nice trigger wave here. So at this point, it seemed like things were overall looking good for my idea that the 5 minute, the 15 minute could be topping out, and maybe we can expect a shift to the downside. And this entire time, the context of my trade was that we were around the high point on the range. We didn't exactly hit the value area high, and at the time we were in between the VAH and the point of control. So not the best place to take a trade, but it is in a spot that makes sense based on this range. And my targets were pretty much the low end of the range, so the value area low and then pretty much the wicks at the low end of the range. And after I saw pretty much the 1 minute, the 3 minute backing up my ideas on the 5 and the 15, I decided to enter. And here's just me explaining my trade idea right here. I basically just said that. So now moving on, we got to move down. And this is what I like to see when I'm basically trading market cipher basic strat. I like it when my higher time frame ideas look like they still have a bit to go before they're fully played out, and the lower time frames are aligning with my higher time frames. Essentially what this does, not only does it give you a higher probability trade setup when you have multiple time frames pointing to the same thing, but if the lower time frames are already starting to show bearishness, then there's a good chance you may get a move pretty quickly. And I like it when you get a move pretty quickly, especially when I'm trading such a small range. It allows me to take profits and lock in my trade quickly, which is the target for a scalp trade. I like to lock them in as soon as possible, and we did very quickly get a move down towards the low end of the range. So we did front run my TP just a little bit, as you can see right here. And once I saw price pulling away a little bit after getting a move close enough to the value area low, I decided to take profits there rather than waiting and possibly getting stopped out after not even hitting a TP. So took profits a little early, locked in this trade. Not upset about taking profits early. I never really will be, because more times than not, if price gets close enough to your target and then starts pulling away, especially if it's in the context of a range where, a move down to the low end of the range could then produce a move back up to the high end of the range. It just makes sense to take profits early rather than trying to squeeze out that extra little bit of profits. And I pretty much said that right here. Stop loss at this point is at entry, because my original trade idea was the range rotation based on MCB, and price already rotated towards the value area low. You don't have to hit the value area low exactly. It's usually better if you do, but we have seen many times price kind of front runs those key range levels, and sometimes can get a rotation back to the other side even if it front runs the levels. And here I just kind of noted that my entry was in a relatively safe spot based on the range. My entry was above the point of control and was also above VWAP, so I had some things protecting my trade, and I was hoping to still get a move farther down to the low end of the range, to the actual lows of the range, the wick lows. So I left my stop loss at entry here, and the last thing I noted was the 5 minute money flow was curling over nicely like I thought it might. So yeah, like I kind of predicted, using the 3 minute and the 1 minute, and looking at how the 5 minute money flow was looking, I was expecting a lower high to be put in, and we were seeing that the 5 minute money flow did curl over and did cross into the red. And now scrolling down even more, a little note, I kept my stop loss at entry rather than putting it right above POC, because a lot of times, even if we're going to reject from POC and move lower, you can still get moves above POC, which actually, great example of this here. We got a move above POC, just barely front ran my stop loss, but then crossed back over the other side of the point of control, got another move back down to the low end of the range. So yeah, for that reason, I kept my stop loss at my entry, because putting my stop loss closer to point of control really wouldn't have been worth it, in my opinion. I wouldn't have locked in that much more profits, and I would have rather, tried to keep this trade open if I could. And, here's a little screenshot of price literally getting, I don't know how close that is, maybe 10 cents within my stop loss order. This is, something that actually happened to me not that long ago. If I go to my Twitter, a very similar thing happened to me about a month ago. If I scroll down here and I get past all the Mike Perry stuff, shout out Mike Perry, repping Market Cipher and being a badass out there. Shout out Mike. But yeah, if I scroll down enough, on November 16th, so less than a month ago, a very similar thing happened to me where price literally came within, maybe a dollar or less of my stop loss, but didn't hit it. And then from there, price continued to dump massively, and that trade became a lot more profitable than it would have been if price had just gone like a dollar higher here. So yet again, by the skin of my teeth, I stayed in this Bitcoin short. And unfortunately, this time it didn't really make a difference because I ended up getting stopped out very soon afterwards. Yeah, this is just kind of me explaining my thought process with leaving my stop loss at entry. Basically what I just said. And then from there, price did get another move to the downside. We actually came down to SFP, that local low. This is where I took profits on my short originally. And what I was noting here was that we wicked the low with 5-minute momentum bull divs, but money flow put in a lower low, and 15-minute money flow is really starting to take a turn to the downside. If MC was looking more bullish, I would take profits after that wick, but for now, I'm leaving my TPs where they are. So I decided not to take any more profits at this low. I already closed 1/3 of my trade down at these lows, so, taking a little bit more profits there. While, if I knew that price was going to come up and stop me out after that, I would have taken profits there definitely. But based on what I was seeing, the 5-minute money flow putting in a lower low, even though we did have a bull div. What do I usually say about, divergences with momentum but not money flow? Oftentimes they just call for a retracement rather than a reversal. Unfortunately, in this case, it did cause for a reversal because we put in a higher high and stopped me out. But I was willing to take the chance and, just keep my trade open and leave my TPs where they were because I was, decently confident in us continuing to the downside. It looked like Market Cipher still had some room to play out to the downside. But this was still a profitable trade. I was stopped out for about a 0.4% profit on my account. And I noted that I'm still interested in shorts based on this 15-minute if the lower time frames align again. So basically, I was saying that it looked like the 15 minutes still had room to play out to the downside. We printed another trigger wave here potentially to these anchor waves, still showing direction to the downside. And money flow was putting in a slightly lower low at this point. And overall, it looked like, this 15 minutes still could take a turn to the downside. So I was looking for the lower time frames to align again. So now if we fast forward a little bit, I took another short trade here. So I entered short off this local SFP setup. This is definitely what I would call a lower probability scalp trade. However, because I had a higher time frame idea backing this up, and because this trade idea, made sense based on the larger context that I was trading, we got to move back up towards the high of the range. If I go over to the Bitcoin price, this was right around the value area high at the time, so we were in a spot that makes sense to short. The 15-minute was still, potentially topping out. And, overall, I was still interested in the shorts. So when I saw this SFP setup, we wicked this high, which was a low time frame market structure point, with divergences in momentum and money flow on the 1-minute time frame. Decided to take a little scalp. And basically my plan for this, take a little scalp, close half the trade around this low, which would be the target, and from there, let the rest ride and just set my TPs at the low of the range. That was my plan with this. So that was, one confirmation that made me enter this trade, but I wanted to check the other time frames to make sure they were aligning as well. If I go to the 3-minute time frame, we can see that the money flow, after getting a move back into the green and putting in this lower high over here, it was now decreasing, putting in lower highs. Momentum was taking a turn to the downside. So the 3-minute began to align again. Now, if we scroll down a bit more, I did not take a look at the 5-minute, but the 15-minute, again, was still looking like it had potential to top out. Momentum, was to the upside. Money flow was coming out. It looks like this could be a trigger wave, and it looks like if momentum takes a turn to the downside, we could get an aggressive move back down to the low of the range. That was basically my idea with this short. It's a very similar idea to the last trade, except for this one, I just took a scalp trade and tried to lock in the trade sooner. And this also allowed me to get a higher risk reward from the trade. Now, granted, it was a riskier entry, right? I could have easily been stopped out of this trade, and price still could have gone down to where it went afterwards, and I wouldn't have been in this trade. So I did take a riskier position here. Whereas my last position, I didn't talk about my stop loss, but my last position, my stop loss was above the value area high. Considering we found resistance on it here and then kind of front ran it here, I was betting on, us not taking out this high essentially and not taking out the value area high. So with this trade, it was a safer trade. However, it was a much worse risk reward. It would have been decent if we got to move down to these lows. That would have been a pretty good risk reward, but this local scalp that it took had a much better risk reward, but it was definitely riskier. And that was the last update I actually made. So now let's go over what actually happened with this trade. So if I go to the 1 minute time frame, we pretty quickly hit my TP. I ended up taking profits a little early. I originally had my TP set down around these lows. I ended up taking it around VWAP because it was late. I wanted to go to bed. I wanted to lock in this trade, and I didn't want to take a loss on it. There were a few moments here where I was pretty scared for this trade. It looked like I might get stopped out here when price was coming back up after I entered, but it ended up playing out, and I was not gonna push my luck with this one. This was a very low time frame scalp idea. It was like a 1 minute SFP. And it made sense for me to take profits early on this one for sure. So I took profits right around here, closed half the trade, put my stop loss actually a little bit above entry because we got this wick right up to my entry. And from there, we got what I was hoping for. We got a significant move to the downside. We hit my second TP, which was at value area low. We hit my third TP, which was a little bit higher than this low actually. I think it was, if I can click on this toilet paper roll. I guess I can't click on the toilet paper roll. I guess I have to click on that button in order to grab it. But yeah, my third TP was probably right around here. So, yep, we hit all my TPs. And, I can go here and show my receipts. So this was the first trade that I took. This was about a 0.4% risk reward. Says 0.45%. That's like, I guess, percent in terms of my margin. But that one was closed out after TP1. And then I still have part of this trade open. So I locked in, let's see, just about 2% risk reward on this trade. I have about 2% locked in. Some of the trades still left open, like maybe 1/3 of it still left open. And price has gotten a pretty significant retracement to the upside. So I wouldn't be surprised if this trade got stopped out here, but, there's still potential that we go lower. We did get a move down below the local range. We can see if we actually closed any candles down there because that would, give some context. And, it looks like we closed some candles down here. I would honestly consider this like a low time frame, market structure to create this range just because of like this weird wick. We put it in right after the high. So yeah, on all the time frames that matter, we did get a close below this low. So potentially we may actually see some continuation to the downside, which is why I'm leaving some of this trade open still. But yeah, ultimately, I got 2 winning short trades just based off of, simple range rotation rules and looking at Market Cipher, for the most part. And, looking at Market Cipher now, things are always much clearer when you look back at them. As I'm looking at this now, it seems very obvious that this would be the place to short. Money flow was coming out. We were printing trigger waves. But it was not so obvious in the moment. But using, not just one time frame, but the time frames lower than it, and using other concepts that, I've learned as a trader, I was able to predict this move to the downside. All right, well, I think that's it for this video. I want to, maybe make another video either today or tomorrow, just going over general Bitcoin analysis because we have had some very interesting price action here. Anyways, thank you all for watching the video. If you enjoyed, please consider leaving a like, subscribing, and leaving a comment. All of that helps to support my channel. Really appreciate everyone that does that. And I will see you all in the next one.